I grew up in a family where the desire to be smaller than we were sat front and center in our minds. Being concerned about the size of our pants, the number on the scale, and the amount of physical space that we filled up in the world took precedence over everything else. Unless, of course, we ever achieved smallness. But until then, we had to strive to be smaller above all else. At least that is the message I received growing up, most strongly from my mother. Sometimes these messages were direct. Cami, we need to lose weight. We are going to go to Weight Watchers. Sometimes they came with grand rewards. You can have $200 if you reach your goal weight by Christmas. Often, the messages were silent. The slow inflation of her cheeks, accompanied by a glare of shame when I reached for seconds or a piece of cake. The most damning messages I got, however, came indirectly. Her behavior spoke louder than her words. Growing up, I watched her deny herself dessert and proclaim, "Oh, I can't, I'm on a diet." I watched her squeeze into her control top pantyhose so she wouldn't bulge and give herself shaming glances in the mirror. I watched her pick apart the last piece of pizza until it was all gone, disappointing herself and saying, "I should not have eaten that." I witnessed the satisfaction on her face when she successfully managed to go through the grocery store without buying chocolate-covered peanuts, but did manage to fill the cart with a variety of low-cal and fat-free items. I heard her refer to our family as the Pillsbury Dough family and call herself the Michelin Woman. I took it all in, and eventually I did it to myself. I sat by her in Weight Watchers meetings, both of us starving since we hadn't eaten all day, yet glowing because we were down 3/4 of a pound from the week before. An hour and a half later, we'd be simmering in shame after a post-meeting Perkins binge. "We'll get back on track in the morning," she'd reassure me. We celebrated victories at Dayton's with new clothes a whole size smaller. And I'd see disappointment in her eyes when we would gain the weight all back and have to go back to our old clothes. I helped her hang pictures of our fatter selves on the refrigerator as deterrents to overeating, which really was not an option at our house because it's no fun to binge on a bag of grapefruit and a bunch of rice cakes. I should have been hanging my fat girl picture up at the neighbor's house on their cookie jar or at the fridge where I babysat. Her actions and words may not have been as incessant as I recall, but I grew to be relentless in piling the shame on myself for the way I ate and the way I looked, or felt I looked. It never occurred to me to treat myself any differently than I saw her treat herself. I had learned from her that this is how women were to exist in the world, and my shame turned into pounds and then into diets. When I grew bigger, the shame told me I was awful, ugly, and unworthy. As I shrunk, it told me I would never succeed. I would never stay small, and it was right. I never succeeded long term, and because of that, I gave it absolute authority. But one evening in my early 30s, I finally decided it was time to question that authority. I had not allowed myself to eat anything at all that day, since I was riding the diet side of the vicious cycle. I was exhausted, and my body was screaming for nourishment. So I had stopped by the grocery store on my way home, knowing that my cupboards were bare. When I got to the door, fear and shame grabbed my feet and stopped me in my tracks. The message was clear. If I stepped through that door, I would certainly buy everything off the shelves and eat it all in one sitting, probably before I even got home. I turned away and went home with nothing. Crying, starving, and scared, I called my mom. I think I need to go to eating disorder treatment. Without hesitation, she helped me search the internet for a place that would help me. And within a couple of weeks, I was in my car starting a 3-month journey through residential treatment. There, I would start to learn how to eat like a normal person and see food as a friendly necessity and not the enemy. In the process, I learned that I hated my mom for what she taught me. I hated that she was always telling me to lose weight. I hated that I had to sneak cake at graduation parties and steal cookies from the neighbors. I hated that she told me being thin would make me happy. I hated that she told me to suck it in and that she puffed her cheeks out at me when I ate a piece of candy. I hated that she did these things to me. Then it dawned on me one day that she did all of these things with me and for me and not to me, and I forgave her. I realized that these messages had been filtered through her and down to me from forces much greater than either one of us, and I forgave her completely. Her intentions were the same as she had had for herself. She wanted us to be what society has deemed beautiful and successful, for us to be people that matter in the world. And thanks to her encouragement and willingness to provide me the opportunity and the resources, I was able to heal. I know now that the size of my body does not determine my level of happiness, my beauty, or my worth in the world. That comes from being genuinely and authentically me. Along with me, my mom learned the facts surrounding eating disorders and body shame, even acknowledging her own damaging attitudes about food. She says she is happy enough as she is, which I have come to fully believe is true for her. She is very successful and confident in almost every way, a brilliant, compassionate career woman and has many loving personal relationships. But I do not believe that she knows she is beautiful. To this day, her body shame speaks loudly when she declares, "Oh, of course I want dessert. Just look at the size of this body. Do you think it ever says no to dessert?" I want so badly for her to realize that she is beautiful and amazing and she deserves to enjoy her dessert. But I can't change her. For now, all I can do is say, "Mom, you are beautiful."